All right, in this video, we are going to take a look at practice problem number 3 from the chapter 3 on functions. The problem says, write a program that will convert inches to centimeters and gallons to liters. The program should prompt the user to enter the number to be converted. After getting the user input, the program should call two functions. The first function should convert the value that the user entered from inches to centimeters and display the results to the user. The second function should convert the value that the user entered from gallons to liters and display the results to the user. All numeric values should be displayed to two decimal places. There are 2.54 centimeters in an inch, and there are 3.7854 liters in a US gallon. Here's a sample run of the program. So the program prompts the user, enter a value to be converted. The user enters 4.75, and then the two functions display these statements here that show the conversions. Okay, so the very first thing that we want to do is to go ahead and get the input from the user. So I'm going to define a variable. I'm just going to call it val, and that's going to hold the information that the user enters. And then in the statement of the problem, you can see that the user enters a decimal number, and that gets converted. So obviously this should be able to handle decimal numbers. So we will convert the value that the user enters to a float. And of course, we're going to use input to get input from the user. Enter a value to be converted. All right, I think our test value in the statement of the problem is 4.75, I think. Yeah. Okay. And then, so next up, right, we've got the input from the user. After getting the input from the user, the program should call two functions. The first function should convert the value that the user entered from inches to centimeters and display the results to the user. So let's work on that first function. So I'm going to define a new function, and I'm going to call it convert inches to centimeters, and then have at the very least an open and close parenthesis there. And so to figure out what goes in parentheses, right, I need to think about what information does this function need in order to be able to do its job, which is to convert the value entered by the user to centimeters. Well, they need to know what that value is. And so therefore, I'm going to have one parameter here, and I'm just going to call that val. You may wonder, hey, is that okay? And it is fine to do that. That means you'll have this local variable inside here with the same name as the global variable. However, inside this function, remember when you have a local variable and a global variable in the same scope like that, it's going to always default to the local variable first. So we're good to go on that. And that avoids the situation where we are manipulating or accessing a global variable from inside the function. Having this parameter here prevents that from happening. Okay, so next up we want to do the conversion. To do the conversion, we're going to take and multiply the value that the user entered, which is now in this parameter val here, by 2.54, and then we are going to display the results to the user from inside the function. Okay, and so it's going to be val inches equals and then cm centimeters. All right, and we'll worry about the formatting in a second here. Oops, I went ahead and ran it, but it's not going to do anything, right, because I forgot to put the function call here. So after the user input, then I am going to add a call to that method that will execute the statements in that method. And remember, to call a method, how do you call it? Well, you call it by its name. And this method's name is, our function rather, its name is convert inches to centimeters. And then followed by at least an open and closed parenthesis here. And then for every parameter in the parameter list, and there's one parameter, I will need to supply a value here. So I am going to put val, that's the user input, it's going to get passed up to this. Okay, and so 4.75. All right, and you can see I get 4.75 equals 12.065 centimeters. In the statement of the problem, right, they ask that everything be rounded to 1 or 2 decimal places. So we haven't done that yet. So let's go back and add that formatting. To add the formatting to round to 2 decimal places. All right, you'll see in the format specifier, I just put a colon and then comma 0.2f. You could throw or period 0.2f. That will round to 2 decimal places. You could also throw a comma in there if you wanted to put commas as the formats, as the thousands separator, but didn't say to do that, so we'll just go ahead with this and then run that again, and I get 4.75. All right, and you can see here I get 4.75 inches equals 12.06 centimeters. If you're paying attention before, you might say, hey, shouldn't that be 12.07, right? And in fact, if you look at the statement, it says 12.07 centimeters, okay? But the way Python does rounding, after a certain point, this is the way that it will round, 12.06. So that 12.07 is what you would get with the usual kind of round, always round. If you have a 5 as the digit that you're using to round on, a lot of times you always round up with that, but that's not the way Python does it. There's actually different styles of rounding. And so for this one, it does it a different way. It uses what's commonly referred to as banker's rounding. So this is correct, right, for the way Python rounds things. And then these practice problems were written before Python changed to that version of rounding. So that's the reason for the discrepancy there. Okay, so far so good. Next up, we need to do the other conversion. So the other conversion will be handled by another function, and that is gallons to liters is this conversion. Again, we're going to have this function, in order to do its job, is going to need to know the value that the user entered. So it's going to have one parameter here for that. And then I'm going to make the conversion. So I'm going to create a variable called liters, and then the conversion factor is 3.7854. And I'm going to times that by val to make the conversion. And then I'm going to have a print statement very similar to the one that we had up in the other function, but that's going to be gallons equals liters colon 0.2f liters. Okay, and then we are going to need to call that function. So how do you call a function? Well, you call it by its name. Convert gallons to liters, followed by at least one open and closed parenthesis. And then for every parameter in its parameter list, which there's one here, right, we're going to have to give it one piece of information. In this case, right, the value that the user entered right here, val. All right, so let's try that with our test value, 4.75. And so we get 4.75 inches equals 12.06 centimeters. And 4.75 gallons equals 17.98 liters. All right, so that looks good. I think that is dead on the first one. And the reason for that discrepancy is the way that Python does rounding now. So I will have to go back and change that. All right, that is it on this one.